In the previous project, we were working with these Zentangles, and we were learning to master 4 of them. What we're going to do is we're going to apply these Zentangles to a design that's going to incorporate bubble letters, and we're going to be putting the Zentangles in bubble letters. So there's actually 2 parts to this project. The first part is to show you guys how to do bubble letters, and then the second part is how to apply the Zentangles to those bubble letters. So let's get started. So for this process, you're going to be practicing some bubble letters. So you can use whatever paper you have available. You can use scrap paper, you can use notebook paper. And even if you do something on here that looks really, really good, but you do not want to present your final design on something like notebook paper, you can certainly transfer it by putting this drawing, let's say you have your drawing here, you put it up to a window, and you can always just trace out what you've done on the paper that you want. So I'm just going to use some copy paper that I have. This is just 8.5 by 11. And the idea is you're going to be putting a word across here. You want the word to be the width of the paper. If you hold the paper long ways, you want it to be nice and wide. In this case, this paper is 11 inches, so you want your the width of this word or name to be about 10, almost 11 inches wide. If you're working with big paper, you can make these letters bigger. So first of all, you want to just kind of establish what the word that you want to do is. So let's say I just want to do my last name, Corso. Okay, so the name is 5 letters long, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to split up this space into 5 even spaces to the best of your ability. So the R is in the middle, so just kind of go with like about a width of what the R would be, and then you should be able to fit 2 letters here and 2 letters here. Now I'm going nice and lightly so I can make modifications if I have to. So you can see I kind of just split up this space in 5 even spots. Here's where the C is going to go, here's where the O is going to go, the R and the S and the other O. So you just do this kind of lightly. As far as the height goes, whether or not you just take a ruler or you can just even just eye it, you want these to be pretty decent rectangles. You don't want them too tall. So if you have a longer word, your letters are probably not going to be as tall. Whereas if you have 4 letters, you might make them taller. So you want them to be rectangles, but you don't want them to be very, very, very thin. You want them to be able to fit. So the way that we do bubble letters, there's actually 2 ways, and I'm going to demonstrate twice. Okay, I'm going to start with the R. So the first way is if you just take this letter and you just kind of write it in print. Now whether or not you want it to fill up this rectangle or you want it to be a little bit smaller, that's fine. So that's pretty much like how you would print out an R. It would be a line coming down, hook around here, probably about the halfway down, and then the line that goes sideways over here. So one way you can do bubble letters is that you can picture these lines kind of being in the center of a road, kind of like the midline in the road. It's like the dotted line. And if you start drawing going around the road on either side, keeping the width about the same, and you just kind of go around the perimeter of your letters, around the outside, and then also in the inside. Now I'm purposely making these lines that I'm drawing for the letter a little darker than the original line of my word. Now you could see that I'm coming outside of the word. Outside of the original box, and that's okay. Okay, it's alright if they're a little bit bigger. So that's one way of making a bubble letter, is you start off with the printed letter and then you go around the outside, kind of keeping it even. Alright, another way, and I'm just going to give it some more space. I'll actually use the back, and I'll do an R again. So just kind of establishing where the R is going to be, same idea. Just kind of almost creating kind of a ladder to sort of give you an idea of where each one of the words are going to go, letters are going to go. So instead of this, you know, same idea. You have the letter R here, and you're going to be looking at these little shapes that make up the letter. You have a line that comes down like this, you have a hook that comes down like this, and then you have another line like this. So what you can do is you can kind of treat them like sausages. That's the line coming down, and then you can make a kind of a bent sausage over here, and that's going to be your, that line that represents this, and then you have a line that comes down sideways. And notice I'm having these sausages or balloons or whatever you want to call them overlapping each other. And wherever they overlap, you're going to get rid of, and you're just going to go around the outside. Once you hit lines that intersect, you stop. A couple of things with these letters, you want to make sure that they're nice and thick, nice and fat. You don't want these areas to be too thin, because don't forget, inside of this space in here, you're going to be drawing some letters. I'm sorry, some Zentangles. So if you start working, just make sure that when you do these other letters, then keep them about the same size. You know, they could be a little bit taller, a little bit lower. You can make them a little more kind of free, but I'm also purposely having them overlap. Okay. I just happen to have some easy words, easy letters here for my name, so. And it's okay if the letters do not, you don't see the entire letter because it gets overlapped. It's completely fine. Okay, so you're going to do something like that. So as I said, if you do one and you really, like, let's say I really, really like this, but I don't like the paper I did this on because it's not clean. I have stuff over here, but I really like this. Make this really dark. Go over it with like a Sharpie marker or something, and then put this up to a window. Put a piece of paper on top of it, and you'll be able to trace it out. So that's bubble letters. You know, like I said, the first way is to just go around the outside of it, and then the other way is to, you know, make the balloons or the sausages or the bubbles or whatever you call it, and then connect them together. Okay? So that's bubble letters. So this first step, you want to make your word or make your name in bubble letters. Okay, so this is what I ended up with on a piece of 9 by 12 paper. Now the next thing, after you lay it all out in pencil, you could hit it with some pen, whether it's marker or a felt tip pen, whatever you got around. And the reason why I say that is so then that way when you make any errors later on, that you can go ahead and erase those errors. Like for example, if you start working on Zentangles and let's say you need to erase part of the Zentangle, you're also not going to be erasing your letter. So I'm going to go with a nice thick black marker with this. So once you have your letters all laid out and they look nice and neat, and you've gone over them with a pen or a marker, what you're going to do is you're going to split up the letters into 3 spaces. You're going to have an upper space, a middle space, and a lower space. So you're basically cutting it into, you know, about thirds. So you can do this just lightly with pencil. The line does not have to be straight. It could be kind of wavy if you want. You can have it kind of sliding up and down as you want. So there's my first line. There's my second line. So you can see that it's split up into 3 different sections. You have an upper section, a middle section, and a lower section. You want to go over this with a pen. Once again, once you're happy with it, if you want to change it at some point, you certainly can do that. But you're going to go over the line now with a pen, and then after you're done with that, you're going to be applying your Zentangles in the spaces. Basic rule to follow, unless you have some other interest to try something different, is one of your Zentangle designs you would be applying to the top of the letters. The second design you pick would go to the middle, and then the last one on the bottom. So if you have Zentangles that are, like if there's one that's really, really different than the rest of them, then my suggestion is to do that one in the middle. Like this one right here is quite different than any of the other ones, so maybe do this one in the middle. This one takes up a lot of space. This one almost looks kind of grayed. So, you think about whether you want that to be on top or the middle or lower. I've decided to go with these three here. I don't really want to contend with the spider web. So as you put the design in, you're following the same sort of process as you did with the Zentangle chart here, and the elements, meaning the size of the Zentangles, should be about this size, if not a little smaller in here than you had on here. So you don't want them to be crazy big. You want them to be pretty much on the smaller side, if anything. If you don't know whether you should go bigger or smaller, definitely make them smaller than what you had in the Zentangles. The designs that I saw in the last assignment, there was nobody really made it overly small, and it would be too complex to do. So yeah, the next step is you're going to put the Zentangles in. So I think I'm going to be ready to put some music on and go in fast motion and make this all happen. So if you think you're done, you can absolutely just hand it in as is, just like this. Whether you did this in pen or you did it in pencil, just make sure the lines are nice and deliberate and dark. Now, one last thing, if you have any available colored pencils, you can certainly add some value and some color to this. So to start with color, it's pretty simple. What you're going to just do is select one of the colors you want and just lightly graze on top of one of your areas for Zentangles. Just nice and light. I'm hardly putting any pressure on my pencil. I tend to work in kind of like an oval motion, so that way it's not giving me any streaks. So it should look kind of just cloudy and puffy and nice and soft. Now, if you wanted to go a little bit darker around the edges, you just push a little harder, and what that can do is it can give you a little bit of shadowing. Now, you can pick 3 different colors if you'd like. You could pick 2 different colors if you like. You can pick 1 color. You don't have to do this at all. So, it's completely up to you. One thing I would suggest is that however you end up coloring one, color them all the same. So I'm going with this greenish blue here. I'm going to do it all throughout here. So you want that consistency. Another thing you can do on the outside, and this is a little bit risky, so you may want to, instead of using a colored pencil, you may want to try it with pencil, regular pencil, because you can erase. So what you can do is do a bit of a shadow, and just on the edge. And what that can do is that can create a bit of an illusion that there's
depth and space between these two areas. So again, it would just go nice and lightly, and you can go into the negative space here. The one risk you run is that once you start coloring black on top of this stark white paper, you know, if you make any errors, it's gonna really show up. You could, if you wanted to, you could erase colored pencil to a certain degree, like if you go too dark or something. So you can see the effect that it happens. It creates a bit of a shadow over there. So you would complete it throughout the whole thing. You could put the shadow around the whole area, but I tend to focus on one side and maybe the bottom. Like, so I'll focus on coloring the edge, you know, shading the edge here and the bottom here and the edge here, but not like the tops, and kind of stay away from the sides there, from the left side. So yeah, I'll put this on fast motion, and I'll go to town again.